Have you ever felt that your family and friends were not real? That they were imposters living among you and replaced your original loved ones? Seems pretty extreme and far-fetched, don't you think? Well, it happens to be that a small percentage of our population suffers from these very same symptoms. They are filled with anxiousness and delusions about people they thought they once knew very well. But how does something like this come to be? How do you even begin the process of curing it? Well, we are about to find out now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Masterpiece. Today we're diving into a quite unique and dangerous mental illness by the name of Capgras Syndrome, of Capgras delusion. Whether you're a longtime subscriber or this is your first time here, I'm thrilled to have you join me. In this video, we'll be exploring its characteristics. Hello everyone, I am a 24-year-old veteran, and I believe that my mother is not the same woman I once knew, and was actually replaced by government agents trying to elicit confessions out of me in regards to my actions during my time in the Army. I didn't exactly have what some might call a bad, or rather abusive childhood growing up. I grew up with 2 loving parents and a sister. But my time serving in the Army has brought countless woes upon me. Depression, psychosis, anxiety, borderline personality disorder are just some of the things that war has afflicted me with. You name it, and I am suffering from it. Even my drug use that was casual during my teen years, according to my parents, have turned into an addiction and a disorder. I started deteriorating mentally through and developed Capgras Syndrome. Now, I don't trust my loved ones around me, and I think they have all been replaced with government agents looking to torment me for my mistakes. This condition has gotten me to be so delusional that I am now imagining scenarios and life events that never happened, like the time I thought I violated my ex-girlfriend and tried to commit suicide, or the time I had enough of my mother's imposter and tried to hurt her to get her away from me. I have been instituted into a psychiatric hospital, and before I was mediated, I wanted to run away from my family because I thought they were all imposters just like my mother. Now, I have become considerably better thanks to depression and psychosis medication that the doctors administered to me, and I will be taking for the foreseeable future. My case is uncommon, but it is not impossible. I went through a lot of hardships throughout my life that have brought me here today, and I could have distanced everyone around me further and further. But I am here today better than ever and proving that nothing is quite impossible. You can get better. This was one of the countless cases of Capgras Syndrome or Capgras delusion, as some doctors and experts choose to call it. This 24-year-old veteran was suffering so much throughout his life that his brain couldn't handle it anymore and resorted to conjuring delusional scenarios for him to cope. But he was suffering all the same, except it was now a different torment. Same pain, different toxic flavor. But to understand this 24-year-old veteran's case and the cases of many others like him, who had their life ruined because of this dangerous delusion, we first have to understand what is Capgras Syndrome. Capgras Syndrome is named after the French psychiatrist Joseph Capgras, who first discovered and detailed the disorder. It is a psychotic disorder where the victim is distrusting of his surroundings and is often inclined to believe delusions about his family, friends, and even pets that boil down to them being imposters and a replacement for the original to torment them throughout their life. Naturally, and as hinted with the 24-year-old veteran's story, individuals already suffering from neurodivergent issues, schizophrenia, or other brain-related issues and injuries are most susceptible to the Capgras syndrome. Experts detail as well how it is more common within older age groups, but with the previous story, and another one that we will detail later, we have come to realize that it was never just an age issue, and young people are in danger just as much as older folk. Delving deeper into the causes of such a wild psychosis situation, scientists argue that the syndrome is often induced by prosopagnosia, or face blindness if we are using layman terms, which is basically a mental disease damaging an individual's frontal lobe to where they can't easily recognize and remember faces they are familiar with, which is a whole other can of worms for another day. But for the sake of today's subject, you just need to know that patients suffering from a brain injury and are already experiencing face blindness as a disorder will likely develop Capgras syndrome and start having the imposter delusions. So, with the explanation out of the way, is there any form of media that depicted this very uncommon disorder to better showcase it as an example? Well, the word uncommon here affects the media examples greatly, but an accurate depiction of the syndrome can be viewed in the 2014 horror flick titled Goodnight Mommy. In it, a woman was separated from her two children due to unexplained reasons and is reunited with them when they are slightly older. The kids remember having a close relationship with their mother, but she is now distant and aggressive with a surgical mask around her face, only showcasing her eyes, her nose, and her mouth. Throughout the movie, the kids become increasingly anxious and afraid around their mother, who they don't recognize anymore, leading to them coming to the conclusion that she is not their mother and is, in fact, an imposter pretending to be. The kids are the ones suffering from Capgras syndrome in this case. They are not sure about the woman in the mask being their mother, and it leads to very intense confrontations due to their anxiety-induced delusions about their mother. It is a good representation of the disease that also highlights how distance and unfamiliarity with how humans sometimes grow to change and forget about certain things can fuel the syndrome further and make the victims believe that it is not the same person any longer. The kids here have been away from their mothers for a long time, and what they remember about her has changed throughout the years. She is not the same person anymore. She is someone with a different set of tastes and mannerisms that can often be attributed to coldness and apathy on her part, but she is still technically their mother. The kids' way of coping is to imagine the woman to be anything else but their mother, and it leads to dangerous precedents. This is what most victims of the sinister syndrome feel, trying to make sense of an unfamiliar situation, coping with changes in the worst way possible. It is a very unfortunate case, but understanding how it links with other disorders and is caused by certain actions that damage the brain, especially the frontal lobe, we can better recognize it and treat it as early as possible. And that brings us to the topic of recognition and diagnosis. Now that you are accustomed to the disorder, you might be wondering, how do we catch it and treat it as early as possible so that it may not reach the dangerous imposter stage? And to that, I apologize in advance for not having the clearest of answers. Capgras syndrome is uncommon, and even with the amount of knowledge we have on the disease, it is still considered poorly researched and understood. What we do know, however, is that regular psychiatric evaluation can and will help with any diagnosis. But more often than not, the family of the victim needs to experience all the troubles detailed previously to realize they are suffering from such a terrible syndrome in the first place. What we also know is that this case is curable and can be dealt with. The 24-year-old veteran is a prime example of just that. It shows us all that no matter the weirdness or the uniqueness of a disease, all hope is not lost. And there you have it. I hope you found this video helpful and learned something new. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content like this. Don't forget to hit that notification bell to stay updated. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover next, make sure to drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.